Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Here it is, 6 after. Looks like we got Richard here without static, and so we definitely have a quorum. Okay, the only, should we do a roll call, or?
Yeah, let's do a roll call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob Roth is absent. Jerry Herman.
Here.
Brian Boyce.
Here.
Doug DeHart.
Here.
Shaw Spady.
Here.
Ginger Redlinger.
Here.
My name is Peter Walter. I'm staff. And with us is Carol Camus, who's our facilitator. And in the audience, we have Doug Neely.
Richard Craven's on
And Richard Craven is Skyping with us today. In order to hear Richard talk, we'll have to turn the sound back on, and that's when we get that screechy noise.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not quite sure how to deal with that, but
Okay.
when I think if we want to ask Richard a question and then get a response, we should just turn the sound on, and then he can talk for a while. Yeah.
And maybe if he has something he needs to say, he can give us a hand motion,
There
a
you go.
cue,
Yeah.
and then we would know to turn it on. Is that
There you
right?
go. Yeah, Richard, if you're going to say something, give us a hand motion, and we'll turn the speaker on. Yeah.
He's
He
got it.
understands.
Good.
He's got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
We'll let you know, Carol. Okay, good. That's
I have a question to the chair here. We have a packet here with several things in them, and I kind of like to have it explained what's what. One of these pieces is a piece, NRC thoughts from March 15th meeting from Richard Craven. It's a one-page memo. Is that true? That's what I see. A proposed mission statement, some activities, day-to-day things we could do, things we would like to do, things we expect from the city. Does everybody see that? Okay, I've never seen this before until today, which is fine.
I don't have one.
Okay, let's make sure we all got this.
You'd like me to explain what's in the packet, actually, that I presented? It was in this folder, and that piece was not,
Okay.
I think that was added to today.
All right.
Yes, it was.
You
So
all hear that?
I would suggest that we let Carol start the meeting,
Okay.
and
Yes.
we go through the materials that
Okay,
are in the
fine. Just want
packet.
to know what's what
Yeah.
in terms of information. Okay, thank you, Carol.
Yes, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Doug?
Can I ask one question right off the get-go here, just to be sure? I'm just going to say quickly what I understand we're doing, and if I'm wrong, I think it'd be helpful to other people to know that. We're clearly working on a revision to the bylaws of the committee, and we're doing it sort of in a structure of some kind of principles or whatever you want to call them, some kind of goals or objectives, and then a clear set of duties and responsibilities kind of stuff. And that's all kind of at a bigger level than an annual work plan, which is something else we have done in the past and would do again. But, and here's the part I want to clarify, that the intention here is to develop a new set of proposed bylaws for how the committee runs. And this is my question. The original bylaws were adopted by the city council. So does that mean we're developing a draft of new bylaws? We would complete them, and once we agree on them, we would share them with the city staff. They would comment on them. Maybe there'd be some revisions, and then they would be forwarded to the city council for approval? I mean, is that what we're doing?
Great question, and thank you for that introduction, because that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about at the beginning today. I had the opportunity to read the resolution, number 04-29, and definitely, just what you said, it is outlined very clear from the city and the commission on what this committee's advisory board is, their job is. And through all that, and that's where we got the 14 that we had talked about in previous meetings, and kind of looked at that, and it was overwhelming. And in talking with you as a group, you wanted to be more efficient, and you wanted to have the respect of the city council and of the city, actually staff, and that you could work together, partnership together. So we had been talking about a preamble and who you are, what you stand for. and we narrowed it down to 4 or 5. One of the possibilities, as Doug had mentioned, is that we can do a revision of the bylaws. And that would mean going in front of the council and changing this document. That's one option. Another option is keeping this as is, because there is a lot of good material in here, and picking the 4 to 5 that we had before and making those goals. And so really putting our energy on that 4 to 5 right now. Then you would still have this document in place. It would not have changed the document, but it would narrow down what you specifically want to do. Does that make sense, Doug?
Oh, it makes perfect sense, but then it strikes me that you just laid out 2 possible paths here. I think real early in this discussion, like in the next few minutes, we should decide which path we're on.
Yes.
And my 2 cents worth is, you look back at the original bylaws, there are some things there that are unclear. There are some things that are just plain wrong, like this group representing the city with other governments and the like, which doesn't seem to me appropriate for an advisory group, period. So, I mean, it seems to me the bylaws themselves need to be revised, and then there needs to be some formal action on them. So I'd like us to pick which path we're on real early in this discussion. My 2 cents.
And before we get started, we'd like to say this is your document. This is your decision. My role is just to guide you through that and to, as a team, get us to the final outcome. But I appreciate your questions and your ideas, because when everybody buys into it and takes ownership, this will be a great outcome. And it's Shay.
Shaw.
Shaw, I'm sorry, Shaw.
Right. Knowing how specific and legal documents are and ordinances are and bylaws are, and knowing that there may be issues with this, and knowing how disorganized and dysfunctional and upset many members of this committee are, I think that maybe the thing to do is to make the amending of the bylaws one of our goals, but to keep the other goals in front of us that we are really, really currently wanting to make changes about, so that we could do both. We can have the review of the bylaws be one of the 3 or 4 goals for the year, but there are other goals I would hate to see lost while we're once again struggling with words and bylaws, because we're really looking at action here. What can we do to be effective in current time with action? Just a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a great extent. We have a clear set of 14 goals in the original bylaws, which are too many. That would be we couldn't, if we did 1 per meeting, we couldn't do them all, especially with Christmas and whatnot. So we need to focus on a smaller number so that we can spend an appropriate amount of time on them. And adding the bylaws amendments would give us much more time on that, and it'd be one of our goals for this coming year.
Mr. Chairman, I might add too, that I kept prodigious notes. I'm your historian. I'm a note taker because I can read my writing better than you can. And, this group, over 4 meetings now, have simplified our 14 down to 4 or 5, which is already, I think, a major accomplishment if Carol will guide us through that. I also like Shaw's idea that we don't forget about the other things that might come before us. We have a recommendation that we sent off to somewhere about loss of trees in the cove, and I wouldn't want to forget that, or other things that might be pending. But I think it's really important that we get real, credible as an organization, and function with a process that everyone here knows what's going on, and the city knows what to expect from us. They may not like it, but at least they know what to expect from us, and that we, are cooperating together versus this situation of unclarity. So I'm hoping for clarity today.
So in previous meetings, what we did is if you agreed with the thumbs up, if you had questions or not sure, thumb to the side, and if you had concerns, then thumbs down. If we could still use that simple means of communication, is that okay? So let's practice. Is that okay? Okay, not okay.
Well, I have a concern.
Okay, good. That's what we want to hear.
And my concern is that this bylaw discussion, it seems to me, and I'm just fine with the idea that we would identify some kind of a path and process, and that wouldn't happen today. That would be a deliberate thing. But these bylaws, to me, are about how this committee would work in the future. What the
Doug,
city
can I
would
interrupt
expect
you
of
just for a
us, what we
second?
would expect of them.
And I didn't make myself clear, so I apologize. Asking if you agree with the way of communicating was just the question.
Oh.
Not anything about the bylaws. Just a practice. If the question on the table right now is, do you agree that we can use the form of communication, thumbs up, thumbs side, or thumbs down?
Just the thumbs
Just
up,
the
not
thumbs up.
do you
Right,
have concerns?
right. Yeah,
Oh,
no.
I'm fine
Is that
with
okay?
as a way
Okay, so
to
let's do a
express our
practice.
opinion.
The question on the table is, do you agree with this form of communication, thumbs? Thumbs down, thumbs side?
Sure, that's
Okay,
fine by me.
great. Just want to make sure we all understand. Okay, so what we also have on the table right now is Shaw's suggestion of that we do an amendment to the bylaws, but that become one of our goals. That's a very long process, or could be, even though I think you've, as a committee, have worked diligently to narrow those down and have talked about it, still to make such a change. So today, then our goal would be, so let's go back to that. Do you agree that we could make an amendment to the bylaws?
Wait, Richard would like to say something.
Okay,
Excuse me?
Unmute.
Hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm trying to get somebody's attention there so I can say something, I guess. I guess I'm not so concerned about the bylaws, and the reason I gave you this March 15 NRC thoughts was just to say, are these the day-to-day things that we're supposed to do? And kind of decide, yeah, that's what we do. And if there are others, great, let's put them down, like what we do. And there's a list of maybe 10 or 12 things there, and maybe those can be categorized as three or four categories or something. But it just seems to me it's important to find out what we're supposed to be doing based on the ordinance and so forth. And I guess I have a little problem getting hung up in the bylaws and the specifics of the bylaws and things. And it seems to me first we need to decide what we're supposed to do based on what the ordinance says and the bylaws say, and based on what we've been doing, in the committee. And so I guess, I'd like to hear your comments on that, basically. In other words, on these day-to-day things we're supposed to do, is this what the city expects us to do?
okay, Doug?
Well, yeah, I'd like to comment on that quickly, Dick. I want to circle back to why I'm focusing on the bylaws. Not that I'm trying to bog us down, but our experience with the Beaver letter, with trying to develop a process for how we communicated with the city, it obviously failed in this case, which means the present bylaws aren't giving us a mechanism for how this committee can function. So the idea that we continue to function under a dysfunctional system and put off coming up with a method of functioning that works, well, you can see why that sounds frustrating to me.
And in one of our previous meetings, we did talk about this, and this is what I heard the committee say, is they want to be very effective. And being effective meant putting realistic goals or activities under bylaws, whatever you call it, have some meat to it, and that it was understood and also accepted by a city staff. Gary?
Carol, I was asked by you to try to pull together the 4 or 5 things that we all agreed on. I know he's waving his hands, but I need to make my statement in that this memo from the 15th is fine, but it has a totally different mission statement than we suggested, Shaw and I, to this group last meeting. Now, I don't know that you acted on that mission statement last meeting or even got to it, but what I'm hoping today is, one, this doesn't go to 4 o'clock, that we set a deadline, whatever that is, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
All right, 2 o'clock, and that we.
1 o'clock.
Okay, 1 o'clock, and then we work
That's
through.
what's on the agenda.
Work through this. We synthesized and simplified. If we go back and start trying to do that over again, I've got better things to do today than that. Okay, we simplified and synthesized, and from 14 down to 4 or 5 concepts. If we could work on that and look at whatever Richard's statement is, or the one that Sean and I put together, we did those 2 things today. We've focused our efforts as a group to 5 instead of 14. And 2, we have a new mission statement that either does reflect the desires of this committee or does not, that includes Richard's concerns or does not, but at least we've got something done.
Our comments are on
Okay,
in this.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In reference to Doug DeHart's comment about beavers and so forth, now, that got hung up somewhere in the process, but that doesn't mean it has to stop there. We can go to the planning commission, we can go to the city council and, submit the recommendation we did and let them look at it. I don't see that as a big issue that it got stopped or hung up somewhere in the process. There's always a way around that process. Also, maybe we didn't include, mark the box or whatever, that it should be submitted to the city commission or city council. And so, I don't see that as a big issue from the point of view of us not being able to continue to accomplish something.
Okay.
Maybe we're learning how to do it.
So let's tie this back to Carol's presentation. I think that these are a lot of good comments here, and I think that Carol's going to help us
Until
focus.
she's done with her work. Yeah.
Right.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
This is great. We have a full advisory committee. Thank you. That is our point today, is we want to come up with goals. You can add them to the bylaws. Let's not get stuck on that. But we have worked, this is our 3rd time together, have worked on a preamble. We asked that Shaw and Jerry do pull up a draft. And then we, as a committee, narrowed the 14 down to 5. And so I'd like to present those to you. We do have an addition and thank you, Richard, for this, your mission statement, your activities, things we'd like to do, and things we expect from the city. That should have been on top of your packet. We will go over that also. When we talk about the preamble or the mission statement, we can talk about those, and then at that time have a discussion as a group, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the preamble that I started with was from Shaw and Jerry, and that was, it's on the screen, it's also in front of you. In a city rich in natural history, culture, and pioneer legacy, impassioned citizens and professionals seek to protect, enhance, and steward the beauty and treasures of nature. Okay, that was the preamble. And then moving on, there was 2 options that they had offered us. In concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizens, developers, and city staff to become conscientious stewards of the natural environment in a manner that best achieves a beneficial balance between the needs of people and the needs of natural environment now and for the future generations. That was option 1. Option 2, in concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizens, developers, and city staff to become natural resource stewards who best achieve benefits for people and wildlife now and in the future. And then we have a 3rd, and Richard, at this time I'm going to read your mission statement. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
The mission of the Natural Resource Committee is to review the quality and condition of ecological, geological, aesthetic, and other natural resources with the City of Oregon City urban growth boundary. Assist the city in developing and implementing policies and plans to protect, restore, enhance these resources and the environmental quality, and encourage conservation of natural resources and preservation and enhancement of ecosystems, open spaces, and natural corridors. So now I'd like us at this time to talk about and then look at if we want to change anything, what way we'd like to go. Do we want to bring them all together, or are they already have similar themes? And then vote on it.
I would like Shaw to explain why there's two options here, option one and option two, because I think that needs to be explained.
Go ahead.
No, would you explain? Because I don't remember what the reason.
I just wrote them, but I don't remember
Okay.
why.
Well, Richard's statement is 80 words long, okay? There's already 80 words in front of us in bold print, from the short statement to option one and option two. We could have a 200-word statement here.
I don't think you have to link them one after the other, though.
No, they're not going to be both.
I think the idea was we pick either option one or option two. Is that right?
Or Richard.
Or Richards, or we bring them together. Done.
Well, in fact,
what I'm
I'm going to offer up a thought. I mean, I think the briefer the better here.
Yes.
Correct.
I agree with something that Dick said earlier. I mean, it's important that we have a clear statement here, but it doesn't need to be a big, long, complicated one. I mostly like option two because it's brief and to the point. The only thing I'd suggest is the term wildlife there isn't inclusive enough, and it should be a more inclusive term, like natural environment or whatever people agree is the proper inclusive term, but I like concise anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was going to say the same thing, basically. Generally, the shorter, the clearer. And as long as everything's covered, and natural resources or some such statement would be better than wildlife.
Bob?
I'm, I guess, a little bit confused or concerned. It seems like, at least looking at one, there's three categories of folks. There's citizens, there's developers, and there's city staff. And at least the 18 years I've been here, there's a lot more different groups and things represented than just developers, city staff, and citizens. Why are developers singled out any more than community organizations or neighborhood group? It seems like developers aren't a special class.
What would make you happy?
I just think citizens, community organizations, businesses, whatever, but just not.
All right, I get the picture.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Would you agree in both option one and option two to change that to community organizations?
And businesses. I mean, businesses have a role too. It's just, it sounds like either you're a citizen, you're developing a property, or you're a city staff, and that's pretty limited.
So what we
Business, because you can
Business?
be a
Okay.
business person and not necessarily a developer and still have an interest.
So let's get it narrowed down to option one or option two. It sounds like that option two is a
do.
favorite.
I like option two.
Okay, can we have a thumbs up, thumbs down, option two? Okay, but taking out developers and adding
Might I suggest the word stakeholders?
stakeholders?
Our business interests would be another possibility.
I was going to say
Stakeholders is very general.
I was going to say the city and its people. Simple as that.
Okay, we have stakeholders, city and its people. We heard businesses. Those are the three that we're looking at. Taking out developers, I think we all agreed with that, okay?
Yeah, that's,
I think there's an important principle in one that's not really mentioned too, and that has to do talking about a balance, a beneficial balance. I think is a really important concept. That there's economic needs of the city, there's natural needs, and I'm not really going to sense that two has that concept of balance in it the way that one does. And I think that's the way the real world operates too.
Are you saying that you prefer one?
Yeah, because of that concept of balance.
Do you want to relook at that?
Would you be okay in option two, in concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and seek a balance to advance an agenda?
A beneficial balance.
Yeah, I can live with that with beneficial balance, yeah.
Doug, do you have a comment?
Doug Neely, Oregon City. I think the notion of putting stakeholders is important there. I understand the concern, but oftentimes the issues that drive concerns is development and its impact. And so, and it has been muted.
It's feedback.
You have to turn off.
30-second feedback.
Turn off the sound there.
And so,
In any case, putting the word stakeholders there is very broad. It includes developers, but I think one of the reasons that you're under, the staff you work with is in the planning department, is because the great concerns of what development does to natural resources. And so stakeholders is very broad. It includes that group, and I'm just throwing that in. I think it's a great word.
I do too.
So you like stakeholder better? Is that what I heard you say?
No,
You don't like stakeholder? Okay, sorry.
stakeholders.
You do.
You do like, okay. All right.
but you like developers too.
But they're within the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're within the group.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Good point.
If you use the term stakeholders, it's hard to leave anybody out.
Yeah.
I mean, stakeholders just infer that people are concerned about it. We've organized on an individual basis, so stakeholders could be churches, it could be neighborhood groups, it could be anybody, really.
Also includes the beavers and the ducks. I mean, the
Only if they're registered to vote.
We've got to get them back.
So, what I hear us saying is, in concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizens, stakeholders, and city staff.
I would suggest something along the lines of both citizen and business stakeholders. That would gets a
business?
little more specific without,
What
and
about
still
the church?
has the inclusive nature of stakeholders in there.
So
about the
business, comma, and stakeholders? Or business,
Businesses
comma,
are stakeholders.
stakeholders, and city
No,
staff?
business and citizen stakeholders with no punctuation.
Okay. So, evaluate, that empowers citizens
Okay.
Citizen and business stakeholders.
and business
So both
stakeholders.
those categories are stakeholders. It's just making, stakeholders is so general,
Yeah,
it,
okay. I see.
it doesn't say anything,
Business
in a
and-
sense.
Okay, empowers citizens and business stakeholders.
Citizen and business stakeholders.
Citizen
And
and business stakeholders. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's
And
good.
city staff to become natural resource stewards. Bob, you talked about option one, though, that you,
Well, I think we had somehow tried to incorporate that balance concept into the second one.
After the first word "and,"
But you can also
evaluate
do it,
and seek a beneficial balance.
you can do it
Evaluate,
after
To
achieve
advance.
balanced
seek balance
benefits.
and advance an agenda.
Excuse me? We could put balanced after achieve in the last line.
Yeah.
So then
Good.
you'd have balanced benefits for people and natural systems. And I'm suggesting we use the word natural systems
okay, instead of wildlife,
now and in the future.
natural systems?
that's not bad.
A question
Now and in
about
the
the
future.
term city staff. Is that inclusive enough as compared to city government or something else? I mean, there are aspects of city government that aren't city staff, like the
Right.
city council, for instance.
Or the mayor.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, is this, maybe that term city staff isn't inclusive enough?
City representatives could include paid and non-paid.
Or is city government okay? I mean, I don't know what the right term is, the right inclusive term of art.
Governance.
And governance.
They call themselves the city of Oregon City.
We could also just say the city.
And the city?
The city.
The city, okay.
Yeah, because we're only dealing with the city of Oregon City. That's what we're here for.
Okay. Shaw, would you like to read the, because I'm not sure I have it down
I'll take a
right.
whack at it.
Okay, thank you, Pete.
Okay, in concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizen and business stakeholders and the city of Oregon City to become natural resource stewards who best achieve balanced benefits for people and natural systems now and in the future.
Very good. Pete?
Good
job.
Okay,
little
is that a
thing.
thumbs up on that?
We have one
I'm
little
getting the
thing.
sideways.
All right.
Ginger?
Well, I love the idea of making sure that we explicitly include business. I think if we put business and stakeholders together, we've narrowed the scope of stakeholders. And I'm not sure,
Well,
I think
that's-
the broader might be better than narrowing it because, like you
Well-
said, the churches and things, so.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that really captures what we're
Yeah.
looking for.
What I was wanting to, if you just leave it at stakeholders, people look and say, well, what are stakeholders?
Well, everybody's a stakeholder.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but,
But if it's just business stakeholders, then
well,
it
it's not just
excludes-
business, it's
Okay,
citizen
right.
and business stakeholders. And
Well,
citizens include churches and everyone that's here.
Not
What,
NGOs.
the
You know,
term
it's-
community?
Okay,
at a
before
time.
we do that, let's
Right,
go
right,
to
right.
Shaw. Let's
Yes.
go to kind of an order,
Yeah,
Shaw.
just a thought. Yeah.
How about if we, in terms of stakeholders, identify them as citizen stakeholders, which would involve the community, business stakeholders, and governmental stakeholders, so then you don't have city staff or city government out there by
All right.
itself. We're
That-
all
Citizen,
stakeholders.
business, and governmental
like
that.
stakeholders.
Business, and are you suggesting we put stakeholder after each one or
No.
at the end?
At
Okay,
the end.
so business, citizen, business, and city government stakeholders.
A simple
I really
placement
like
of
that.
a comma.
Governmental.
Or governmental.
Governmental.
stakeholders,
Yeah,
because
I
there's
like that.
multiple
I like
layers
that.
of government.
Right.
Governmental. Okay, Bob?
Well, the one thing, the reason I was separating out citizen from like community stakeholders is a citizen stakeholder could simply be any resident of the city coming up, not necessarily representing anybody but themselves and their own views. You say citizen / community stakeholder, I think infers kind of an organized group. Could be a neighborhood association, it could be anybody, but if you just say citizen stakeholder, it kind of doesn't really acknowledge like the roles of neighborhood associations as a group, a collective group for the same purpose. And that's the only reason I wanted to say you get citizen / community, business, and city staff, and I think that would cover pretty much the range or hierarchy of groups.
Yeah, a simple
So-
comma placement would, before
Yeah.
the word stakeholder, so it's not limited by the word next to
I'm not
it.
going to
What
argue
we
with the
have on the
teacher.
table is citizen / community, business, and governmental stakeholders.
So it's going to be a comma after community.
Comma after community, comma, or and between business and governmental stakeholders.
Well, you lost me though with the governmental one. I understood people were trying to be simple here, but we're looking for a term that means the government of the city of Oregon City. Governmental stakeholders doesn't mean that to me.
I think it means all of them, because the
Well,
city,
exactly.
the city is influenced by other governmental agencies. So if we just say governmental, we get to include comments about all levels.
But is the job of this advisory committee to advise Metro and the state of Oregon and the government of the United States, or are we focused on the city of Oregon City? I mean, I guess I
We
thought
get
we
to-
were focused on the city of Oregon City.
Okay, Bob?
I might defer to the mayor someday, he has some comments first. If he doesn't cover it, I might back him up.
It's true you're a body of the city, but when you think of natural resources in the broad sense, you're really, if you make recommendations, you're making recommendations that the city may need to take to the other governmental institutions. I don't have any problem with the government. You realize you're not. You could have a group representing this body going before the county commission and so forth, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with the government because, wastewater treatment plant isn't owned by the city. The water treatment plant is not owned by the city. There are many services that are not operated by the city that are government services. And a lot of those are things that, their impact are things that you probably want to deal with. And so I think government in general is okay. You just recognize to probably have the maximum input, you're going to go into as a partnership with the city itself to express concerns about certain things. I don't think having government there is a problem.
Well, maybe to answer my concern, frankly, thinking about it, when we get down to the duties kind of thing, if we make it real clear who this committee interacts with, that sort of solves my concern
Yeah.
about misinterpreting who we're advising.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
It says you begin with, in concert with the city to begin with.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Okay,
The only
Bob?
thing I was going to do is real quickly, the stuff that we're already dealing with, stuff like, the trolley bridge obviously involved in multiple jurisdictions, the South End expansion, there's an interface with Metro because of the Metro land purchases. We've had presentations from Metro too and stuff like that, so I think governmental, we're already dealing with more than just one layer of government.
Yeah, I think we need to make clear the difference between us advising and us interacting, because we interact with a much wider range of agencies than we advise. We only advise the city of Oregon City.
And that's going to be come down into your activities.
Right, right. And so we have to be clear, are we talking about everything we might possibly do and our specific goals that we want to make recommendations about in the near future?
So with that, Pete is writing up.
I was out of the room for a while.
Okay, so are you writing the new?
In concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizen, business, and governmental, are we sticking with that?
Yeah,
Governmental.
yeah.
Stakeholders to become natural resource stewards who best achieve
Balanced.
balanced benefits for people, and, okay.
Can you,
Natural
what is
systems.
your last statement? That benefits people and who?
Natural
systems.
systems.
Natural systems,
And that
Now
last
and in the
part,
future.
now and in the future, is deleted?
No, now and in the future.
Okay, fine.
still there.
And just for clarity here, I want to make sure we all understand, this statement follows the intro preamble, is that
Right.
true?
Yes.
Okay.
And option one is.
All right.
we've taken
Option
a
one
little
goes,
bit of-
option one goes
Yeah,
away.
Right.
Right.
We've taken some bits out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
So let's, before we put a thumbs on this, let's go ahead and read it one more time. And Pete, would you like to do that for us, please? And we'll start with in a city rich. And do we have any?
Richard's quiet on the hand.
Okay.
Okay. In concert with the
He's giving the thumbs.
In the city rich.
He's got his thumb up.
Go ahead.
It's the right finger, yeah.
I hope that was the right thing.
In concert with the city, they advise, evaluate.
Yeah, I
and
can't
advance-
quite see the, just see a thing.
Oh, okay, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Bigger than his
In a city rich in natural history, culture, and pioneer legacy, impassioned citizens and professionals seek to protect, enhance, and steward the beauty and treasures of nature. In concert with the city, they advise, evaluate, and advance an agenda that empowers citizen, business, and government stakeholders to become natural resource stewards who best achieve balanced benefits for people and natural systems now and in the future.
And I think they said the city of Oregon City, is that right? No?
Governmental.
Governmental, okay.
Yeah, we did discuss that, but
Okay.
The only thing I would ask is, after the word achieve, last sentence, you did it a different way than I thought it was. Achieve balance that benefits people and natural systems. Just a different ordering.
Okay.
Achieve balance that benefits
I thought-
people.
Balance,
Then it would be both.
balance that benefits.
That was a certain kind of balance. I'm trying to remember the adjective.
So then it would say.
Beneficial
achieves
balance.
Balanced.
Well,
Well, benefits is in there, that means.
It's either balanced or
benefits.
not, I guess. I don't
Achieve
know.
balanced benefits
yeah, it was benefit, not
For-
beneficial.
that benefits, balanced benefits, balanced,
That's-
balance that benefits both people and
There
natural
you go.
systems.
Yeah.
Balance that benefits
Both.
people. People.
Yeah.
Good.
You have to
Okay.
change four to both.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're ready. Do you agree? Jerry, did you have?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm just anticipating.
Any input at this time before we do a thumbs vote? Okay, if you agree with this as a preamble mission, thumbs up. Any concerns? Okay, and do we have a thumb here?
We do.
Oh, wow, good job, team,
Unanimous
wow.
thumbs.
We
that
can
was
go. Thank you, Richard. Okay, Richard, are you, you gave us a thumbs up, but we talked,
Can he talk?
You sure that's a good idea?
I
Okay.
just want to, I know you put a lot of work into your thoughts, and I just want to make sure that you feel that we've covered, with your mission statement, you feel comfortable with this mission statement.
I'm totally,
Okay, then let's move
All
on.
right, wonderful.
Then we took the list of bylaws, the 14, in the last couple meetings, we narrowed it down to 5. And if you'll bring those out, and thank you to Jerry and Shaw, who put this together for us. And
Did you say bylaws?
Are you talking about this scribbled piece of paper?
yes, and you should have,
Yeah, right in the.
I wrote it, focused activities. I put the 5.
Right there.
It's on the screen, you probably can't see it, but our television land can, and there were 5, and I believe it's also in with Jerry's.
All right. And I
See
think,
the 5.
Carol, it's important to mention that in their packet is a scribbled up disaster, which is what we worked over and synthesized and X'd out things we didn't want, certain goals,
Right.
certain activities, and came up with the,
These are the ones, Jerry.
yeah,
Right.
thank you.
And just for history, background history, is over 2 meetings, we actually took time. And that, the piece that Jerry's talking about is evidence of our work of spending time in narrowing, putting some together and narrowing some down. And we actually talked about each one of the 14 items, so we won't have to do that today. But we went over each one and felt where we could include them in another activity. So if you look at the 5 right here, and it's also on the screen, promote community involvement in conservation of natural resources within the city and its UBG in partnership with the city, neighborhood associations, and community organizations. Do you want me to read each one, or?
Yeah, let's go through
Okay.
them all.
Review and initiate updates of the city's comprehensive plan, codes, and policies that relate to statewide planning goals that are integral to our mission. Review and recommend land use applications and city activities that have the potential to impact natural resources in the city and its UBG. Conduct orderly meetings that result in good communication to city staff, policymakers, and city departments and community to achieve our mission. And 5, coordinate with Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and Planning and City Commissions on at least an annual basis that results in good communication and mutually beneficial results. Now, we did talk about adding one more, and that was to review the bylaws.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That would be 6.
yeah. And number 4, I feel like city staff and city departments are redundant, because city departments are made up of city
That's a
staff.
good point.
Okay.
Just an English thing.
True.
I'm worried we just got lost there in talking about adding things like review the bylaws. I mean, that's a task you do in a particular
That should be a
year,
work
and then
plan.
it's done. It's part of a work plan.
Work plan.
This stuff, I mean, or whatever we do, this is supposed to apply to the committee for the rest of its life, and
Forever.
unless and until it's changed.
Right.
Right,
Yeah. well,
okay.
This,
So the bylaws would be actually a goal, then?
Well, they'd be a task.
A
in the
task.
Current year work plan.
Okay.
I think. I mean, that's kind of how I think of it. Anyway.
These are not tasks, these are
These are-
strategies that we're following.
These are.
Or you call them responsibilities, or call them what you like,
All right,
but what
sure.
the committee does in
Yeah.
the long
Is
term.
this the
I like that.
committee's bylaws?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
I think there's one concept missing, kind of like under number 1. In a sense, all of these are kind of reacting to different processes and activities in the city and just kind of finding the committee's niche in that. And under number 1, I think promote citizen involvement, but I think since we still want to be proactive, if we identify an issue or a challenge, we want to not just kind of wait till it comes up in the natural course of stuff, but we want to be able to provide leadership or input and maybe draw the city's or somebody's attention to things happening so that we're proactive. 'Cause-
Would you be okay with promote in advance?
yeah, well, I think help the city become aware of emerging issues or challenges. Just something
Right.
where we provide some kind of leadership, and it's
Right.
not just,
I
well,
agree with what you're saying.
4 or 5 years from now, they brought it up, and yeah, this is what we think we should do. And by that time, it might be too late. We might be 15 feet underwater.
Okay.
Don't talk
So-
on my site. Don't-
My suggestion would be, is now we would write a goal for like number 1. We would write a specific goal, and Bob, that's where we could add into that goal what you're talking about to be, out front or
provide like I think the idea is just provide kind of like leadership, take all of our experience and knowledge and not just always wait till we're asked.
Okay?
Leadership's a good word. I don't know how you just drop it in there, but it's a good word.
Yeah.
Promote and lead community involvement.
Maybe that's how you say it.
I think a certain amount of it is in some of the following ones too, like review and initiate implies taking an initiative and leadership.
Right.
For instance,
Number 3 says review and recommend.
it really needs to be all the way through if we're going to be talking
Yeah.
about real
Right.
leadership.
Right.
So,
Well, and the rest of them do. Review, it's
Yeah.
active language. Review and initiate, review and recommend, conduct, coordinate. Those are the lead words in each of the.
And again, I guess what I'm thinking about are the kinds of things that have been brought up, like the outdoor lighting or things like that, where it's not organically part of the assignment of the processes, but it's something that at least some members feel strongly about, or it's a chance to raise its level of awareness.
Well, and
yeah,
those would be.
we did talk about that in one of the earlier meetings, and we felt that would fall in on, I don't remember which one, but one of these here.
Yeah, we didn't
Number
exclude
one.
your dark sky concerns, Sean. We feel they're very logical and important right now. Matter of fact, I think the Cove still thinks, developers think that they can do it within their site. But we think they would fit in as a task to specifically work on. Let's get that ordinance done. You know, your idea of the night sky ordinance, you know. Anyway.
Okay.
Shaw? Did you?
Okay, so
I did.
under this first one,
Promote and lead.
so you're wanting to match tasks to each of these 5. That's what you're saying.
Well, my idea was that we would write a goal for each one of these. And in your packet was what a SMART goal is. And a SMART goal is very specific. It answers the question who and what. Measurable, how. Attainable. Goals are realistic and can be achieved in a specific amount of time and are reasonable. Relevant, results. They have results, and the goals are aligned with current tasks and projects. So the goal would be aligned to what we just came up with on the 5. Doug?
Well, let me be the curmudgeon here. I'm back to making this as simple as we know how to make it. Now we've got a simple preamble. I think this, whatever you want to call this, whether you call it responsibilities or some other word everybody likes, this should be simple too. And I'm not convinced we need to go on and write elaborate goals for every one of these. If we agreed that this group of 5 or 6 or whatever the number is was clear and understandable, I think then you go on to how the committee would function and what your short-term work plan looks like, what task you're working on. My personal opinion is I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to craft long-term overarching goals. I mean, I think if you can turn this into something we all like, you're there, is my opinion.
And then, by the way, when I type these, that's a typewriter. Sorry. When I type these, I saw out of them as goal statements, okay, at least part of them. Now, having said that, there's 14 things that we tried to follow.
Yeah.
That didn't work for us as a group over the last 7 years or whatever it's been. 14 is too much. This is 5 areas that are focused, and I feel like this is a major accomplishment if we did these things. But whatever you want to call them, I don't know what you want to call them. But I thought of them as goal statements as they were.
You can call them whatever you as the committee want to call them. Responsibility, goals. The only idea behind a SMART goal is often that it does have these components to it, but
Right.
it's your goals. You don't have to have those components. You can go from here, the statement, to a task, to the planning. That is up to you.
That's certainly what I favor anyway, myself.
Well, I think back a little bit what Doug's saying here, I'm looking like under number 3, under the land use applications, we don't really initiate those. So we can't set a goal like we're going to do 30 land use applications in a calendar year because it all depends on what comes down the line and the scheduling and stuff like that. So if the goal is to provide a service, that's okay, but to quantify that, do things, that's not up to us.
I agree with that, too. But it does state, if it does say if they came before us, it says review and recommend.
But I guess
Assuming
we-
that they would come before us.
Are you deferring to the mayor here?
You better be careful.
And then Shaw?
They
Richard needs to be heard.
Can,
Can I mute it for a minute?
need him.
Sort of strange.
It's something about me, I think. This is the second time I come up, and it's okay.
Well, he's talking now, but I don't know. Whatever.
You know, I'm kind of thinking of how the Natural Resource Committee can best function in terms of new goals. You know, we operate using study sessions and sit down and work out things in study sessions. We treat the commission meetings more as action entities where we're dealing with specific actions or things that are before you. I don't know to what degree you review development plans. Did you look at the South End concept plan? Those kinds of things?
I served on it.
Yeah, and those are the things that, you know, your meetings might be. Now, the reason I'm focusing this suggestion in terms of goals, the commission sets its goals now on a biennial basis. And whatever goals you set forward, particularly if they have budgetary implications, you might want to take and function your goal development and setting and so forth to actually present it very early on. In fact, maybe the first day of the next commission, which, of course, we're going to have the elections in November, because they will have their own goal-setting sessions. And it'd be good if you have things that you want to see implemented that are goals, to get them into that process, because they go into the goal-setting process early on, and those goals drive the budget process for the next 2 years. We went to a biennial budget process. For example, if you were to come up with a goal that you presented to the commission right now, and it had money implications, we'd have a hard time dealing with it, because we already have our budget set. My suggestion is, when you're actually looking at the development of goals, is to take those into study sessions, work them out with a view that, you know, that's something that can be put forward to the next commission before they have their goal setting sessions, so they can see what your recommendations are. And it's just a thought in terms of process, not in terms of the goals you set, but in terms of the process of developing those goals and then directing them at the goal-setting process that the commission puts forward at the beginning of each 2-year period.
So that would be the 1st of January, basically.
That's
I
right.
said November.
Well, no, you don't know who they are. Well, they aren't sworn in until January, and then they have their own goal-setting session, I think, at the end of January.
All right. So, but we'd have to do this in October, November latest.
Right.
To our part. Set
So
a
that it's
work
ready.
session to create these things. Okay.
And I think by doing it in a study session, then bring it, you know, when you're ready to kind of put it formally forward as your recommendation, maybe towards the end of the year, do that at a formal meeting, and then get those before the next city commission early on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I put a note on your smart outline here.
Okay.
That for a work session.
That has nothing to do with your goal
Right.
setup, but it's just
You know,
it's a case of putting them
it
forward.
might very well have something to do with our
Yeah.
goals. Because when I came to this meeting today, one of my goals is to get this committee effective.
Amen.
And nothing on this set of goals would get this committee effective.
Right.
What will get this city effective is if, one, our first goal is to get not only our goals, but our issues before the city commission, before their annual session. That would be, to me, one of the primary goals, because we will have had a whole year of either being effective or not effective. And if we're not being heard, and if we have issues about not being heard and not being involved in the process, those need to go to the new city commission before their planning session meeting.
That's early in that's at the end of January. It comes quick.
To me, based on the ineffectualness of this committee, that should be goal number 1. Goal number 2 should be becoming effective. So I don't know how this committee makes a goal out of becoming effective, but that should be either goal number 1 or goal number 2. Probably goal number 1. And then goal number 2 is taking our issues about being ineffective to the city commission. But how do we become effective? To me, that is my goal for being here today.
You well know that I was the promoter of forming the Natural Resource Committee to begin with, and I think probably the way the committee operated and so forth result in an explosion or implosion or something, and then when I came mayor, I made sure that it was reinstituted. I don't want to see it go through the same process again. And that's why I'm saying goal setting, I think, could be the thing at a study session that's kind of separate from your action that you take at your regular meetings. Bring them in when you think you have goals that you're ready to go with, and you got a support of most of the committee or all of it, to get that done before the end of the year and get it out there so the next commission is aware of it.
Okay, so my question to you, since you're taking the time today to be with us, which is really nice, how do you see this committee moving from the frustrations we feel about being overlooked, overheard, not paid attention to, not integrated into the process? How do we make that a goal that gets us where we want to be?
I hope what I'm suggesting is the mechanism, because then you put it before a commission at the very beginning of the process.
Okay.
And if they adopt those into their goals, those are the goals that set the budget.
And the city goals.
That's the city goals, right?
So what this is.
That's a brief handout, but they have the specific.
Richard is going like this.
And
Richard's,
so
Richard-
I'll get out of here.
No, don't.
He just waved the mayor off with his hands, like an aircraft landing on an aircraft
Can you
carrier.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Doug Neely and, was that Shaw speaking?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Doug Neely and Shaw are kind of passing each other. Doug is talking on one level, and Shaw is talking on another. Doug is talking on goals that we might put before the commission, as I understand it, and Shaw is talking about the problems we have, or apparently we have, in day-to-day operations within the city, in dealing with city staff, perhaps. And I think those two things are totally separate, in my view.
Well,
I mean, they don't depend, that does not depend on funding from the city, which I think Doug is talking about in terms of goals. For
understood.
example, we might, well, yeah, I guess that's my comment.
Well, I'm going to say I don't know. I'm not sure it's different, because if those goals go into the goals of the city commission, then the staff operates on those goals. So I'm not sure
I think
that
we're-
they're separate.
I guess I do see a little separate. What Shaw's talking about is how right now can we come up with one or two goals as a committee that would be a working goal, not a goal for your advisory board, but a working goal amongst the group. And what Doug's talking about is an advisory goal. I think advisory goals that what you would go out and do. Now, Shaw, and then Bob has a comment. He's
Okay.
waiting patiently.
Thank you, Bob. What I am suggesting is that what I'm calling goal number one, which is to provide our goals, it's not just our goals, but it's our goals and our issues to the city commission, so that our issues are heard at the very beginning as well as our goals.
And as I look at these that we've come up with, number 4, to me, what you're saying would go under number 4. The meetings that result in good communication to city staff, policymakers, city departments, and community to achieve our mission. So a goal under that, number 4. So how can this group be effective? How can you communicate effectively? How can you be heard? And how does the process? That there could be a goal around that would fall under 4. Bob.
I think there's two things. One thing on the effectiveness front, to decide if you're effective or not, you need some kind of measurements. You need some kind of criteria for effectiveness. And so if we figure out, and I don't know what those are off the top of my head, but if we figure out that, maybe we get a response, from elected officials within a certain time frame, that's a sign of effectiveness. If they adopt some things that we're forwarding, that could be a sign of effectiveness. But I think if we're going to determine if we're more effective than now or the way we used to be, you have to figure out some criteria for that. And the second thing I wanted to say about the budget is one of the things that we've kicked around a lot is the idea of at least a part-time, maybe interdepartmental volunteer coordinator. And obviously that could have budgetary impact. And so if something that we wanted to pursue was recommending that the city fund a staff person to coordinate volunteers for, different departments, whatever kind of balance, that's something that we would have to get in following the mayor's kind of timetable for involvement, because it's not that position's not going, a new position like that's not going to get funded if we don't incorporate it into kind of the goal setting for the city and the timetable they have for developing the budget.
Bob, as you mentioned that, and I'm kind of using this as a guideline, I'm mentioning that, number one, that would fall under number one. You could write a goal under number one, just what you were saying. Okay, there's Jerry and then Doug.
I just don't want to lose our process today. If we have these 5 things in front of us, I want to deal with them and figure out what they're called. In the previous document, they were called scope of activity. That's what they're called. And there was 14 of them. Now there's 5. The thing that Shaw's talking about, I just made a list of really overarching concerns we have as a committee. Determine how we can become effective. I think that's what you're asking.
Right.
And then become effective. Let's get with it and become effective. And I think that has a lot to do with how we conduct our business. I'm really concerned about our disordered function and what the staff has to deal with this disordered function. I want to see orderliness here, voting, everything we do. And then we could seek validation as an internal goal that we have. Hey, are we important or not? First of all, we got to think we're important, then act important, and have a process that makes that. But I think orderliness will sort out a lot of these things. We have not been ordered in what we're doing.
And Jerry, that would fall under your number 4, right there.
Right.
You could make a goal, right there. Right now, in this dialogue that we're having, you are creating goals right now under each
But
one
are
of
we
these.
going to adopt these 5 areas first? That's my question.
Okay,
In process here.
okay, and I think we're doing this processing to get to that point.
Okay.
Well, I
Done.
agree exactly with the point Jerry was making, and don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with any of the points that Shaw and Bob brought up. I think those are exactly ones the committee should be working on in the next year or two. But to get through this task, I mean, we've agreed on a preamble already.
Yep.
We've got a working draft of 5 goals. I don't think working on those goals or turning them over and over again in terms of the problems we have now or the opportunities of the next year helps much. I mean, I think preamble, we've got draft goals now, we could work on them to refine them later, but it's the next 2 steps that I think where you answer all the concerns I just heard. Procedures of the committee, the old bylaws have procedures, so you start there, and then you say, okay, how do those need to be revised to work the way we think the committee should work? And then finally, this work plan, if it's a 2-year work plan or whatever, and providing goals to the new city commission, all of these specific things with an action and a deliverable and a time frame belong in a work plan, I think, rather than turning over and over and over our long-term goals so they reflect every one of these individual actions.
And Doug, what you were saying goes under number 4. Exactly.
Well, yeah, I don't think the goals, and as you gather, I don't think the goals are bad. They're broad and inclusive, and then those goals give you the guidance when you develop a 2-year work plan or whatever to what's the stuff we're going to do or work on.
So with that, are you ready to do a vote on these 5 goals? Or scope of responsibilities?
Yeah, whatever we want to call them. And as a draft, I mean,
As a draft,
understanding that
this is all
we'd
a
still
draft.
work on them further to wordsmith them.
Shaw?
Is it possible to just add a couple of words before I would vote on them?
Yes, yes,
Okay, may I make those suggestions?
yes, please.
Okay, under number 1, I would suggest promote ongoing community involvement. Just stick ongoing in there.
And before, someone had mentioned promote and lead. Did you want to add lead to that?
I want to have lead.
I think lead's a good word, and also I think proactive gives a different attitude to it that we're not.
So promote, lead, and
be
be
proactive.
proactive?
Proactive leadership.
Okay, proactive leadership?
Well, then provide proactive leadership.
Is promote, lead, and provide.
No, provide proactive leadership.
Oh, okay, provide proactive
Leadership.
leadership, okay,
And ongoing community involvement
okay.
in conservation, and it's UGB, not UBG, which is fine.
UGB, okay.
On number 2, I'm going to suggest that we add a third element, so it's review, comma, initiate, and recommend updates
Good.
to the city's comprehensive plan codes and policies as they relate to statewide planning goals. And then on number 4, just instead of 2, we put conduct orderly meetings that result in good communication with city staff, policymakers, and community.
Oh,
With,
good.
yes,
With.
Good.
okay.
And that's all I'm suggesting.
Okay. Any other
And
suggestions?
that was with taking city departments out, I assume.
City staff, policymakers.
Yeah, 'cause-
Yeah, taking
And-
out city departments.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right on that.
And then on number 5, I would like to just rework that a little bit so that it includes that we get our, because we're coordinating, I'd like to have it in just that we're coordinating before their goal-setting sessions.
Before this city or before the Parks and Rec?
Either one.
Okay.
I mean, that we have the ability to have our input into those,
All right.
our goals, our input, whatever input we want, our coordinated thoughts to those committees before they have their, so I don't know how we do that.
Coordinate
exactly.
in a time-sensitive manner with parks, recreation, blah, blah, blah.
I think timely would capture
Or
it.
timely. Okay.
You want to reread what that looks like?
I think it should read, I like what you said, that one, 5, coordinate in a time-sensitive or timely manner with parks, recreation, and all those other people.
But still, in a timely manner, doesn't say what,
I think it's time-sensitive,
I mean, before, you want to do it before
right.
the goal setting of the city.
Well, I think there's a couple of parts to it, because one part, as the mayor was saying before, is you have to get in the kind of sequence of the city if you're going to have your input kind of assessed or perhaps incorporated. But other time, the reason timely is important is there could be a decision where somebody's going to decide to cut down a bunch of trees in Clackamas Park, and that's not planning on an annual basis because you don't know when that's going to take place. So
Timely manner?
Timely captures both the cycle
Okay.
of input plus things that have immediate concern or schedule that you don't want to lose out on that.
Okay. Ginger, you had your hand up at one point.
Well, I was, a couple of things. Thank you. I was wondering why 5 couldn't be encompassed. My concern is we've got too many, even 5 goals is a lot of goals.
And I think
So-
we've changed these from goals to responsibility.
Focused activities.
Yeah.
Is, so that 5 wouldn't fall under any of the other 4? Because
It's
it
very-
deals with city commissions, city Parks and Rec Department. And Richard would like to talk, by the way. I just see him waving his hands at us, so.
Richard's
Anyway, so I was just wondering, because I'm new, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think
So-
the issue, just to answer your question
Yeah.
from my history of this group, is that we've never gone to Parks and Rec routinely. Brian has, but we as a committee have not involved ourselves where we should have
Right.
to let them know what we're working on, or kept the city commission up
Okay.
to date. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, can you go back to your slides where you have it closed?
Could you repeat that?
Can you go back to the slide where you have, yeah, there you go. Thank you. I think that's what you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
How'd you get
Thank
that up
you.
on your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry, Richard, you don't have a copy of that. I apologize.
So it turns green,
That's all right.
sign in, and then
So then 5 is
flip
a
that
separate
over. I think we'll do it.
activity, okay.
Maybe it's the other-
Now, I go back to, as we talk about, these are the scope of responsibilities. When you really get down to tasks, that's when you would make the goal or the action plan. You're talking, action plan. But often if you had a goal for that action plan, that would help direct your action plan. And when you talk about measurements, you might even put in there, we would go to 3 or 2 park and rec meetings and one, that's where some of your measurement would come in. And the city council, 1 the first meeting of every year, whatever you decide, that's how you would put that measurement in there too. Bob?
Something, there's kind of standard formats, kind of like for work plans, like when you're producing grants and things. I think it'd be really helpful for us if somehow we could have a form or a template, so we're plugging stuff in, but we can be clear, where we've reached this stage, we've got goals, here's the objectives, here's the activities related to make sure we can get to each objective, and here's kind of a timeline. I think the problem we have is that we're kind of going after stuff, but since we don't have it all written down, or we're not working off the same template or format, it's kind of hard to get to the end, because we're not following kind of the same format.
Bob, I think since we're doing, this is kind of this hard, sticky, hard work that we're doing now, once we get this done, I think that's going to be the easier part, because you're going to have the foundation built, and then you can take those pieces to do exactly what you're saying, put it into the work plan.
I think that's going to be the way, ultimately, we're going to need to have a written work plan that shows how all this stuff's going to get done.
Yeah, just to give an example of how this will work, if you take number 5, you can have specific goals real easily out of this.
Right.
Go see the Parks and Rec Committee, go see City Commission and the Planning Department, and whichever other ones that we need. And then our tasks are in this, but not spelled out. We spell them out as part of our day-to-day work plans. That's what we're trying to do. So this is the start to get done what you're talking about.
And everything so far that you've brought up on the side has fallen under these 5 activities, which tells me that these are strong activities. These are strong scope responsibility, if you call it, because everything you've mentioned can fall under one of those. It was Shaw and then done.
I have a suggestion for a new goal 5, or whatever we're calling these things.
Okay.
Communicate our goals and issues to the City Commission and to the Parks and Rec Committee before their annual goal-setting sessions in order to effectively further our agenda.
Hey, that's pretty good.
That's very clear.
We're very clear.
So would you read that one more time? And Pete, would you mind writing it up on the, so we have that? Thank you.
This is going to happen on Pete's time. I'm going to watch him scribble effectively.
Because we want to make sure we have these very concise and accurate, because we don't want
to test the foregoing legibility.
Yes.
I can't see it.
You can just read it off.
Good.
Write it off.
Thank you.
Good, I thought my God, my vision's worse than I thought. There was nothing on the...
While he is writing that, Bob, you had a question, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have a question.
I'm sorry,
Go
Doug.
ahead.
Yeah. Okay, then Ginger.
A quick comment, just so we don't lose it. I agree with what a couple others have said about a work plan being where you get down into the very specifics of what you have to do when, and how would you know when you succeeded and all that stuff. And it does strike me that a work plan is probably not of just 1 year time horizon. It's as far out as you can see, whether that's 2 years or whether that's 3 years. I'm not exactly sure, but as far out as we can describe in detail the things we're doing.
Well, I would think a work plan would be more time specific, but every year you would agree that they're going to do it again, or you would adjust it.
Well, what I'm suggesting, though, is that if right now you knew that there was going to be a revision to a planning process of the city next year or whatever, you would reflect it in your work plan now that you knew you were going to be working on that next year.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
anything
Yes.
you could see, you would
Yes.
reflect, not just say, uh-oh, that's beyond December, so we'll ignore that.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, it was Ginger and then Jerry.
I was just wondering if someone could give me an example from number 2 of initiating an update to the city's comprehensive plan.
I can give you an example, because I'm the oldest historian in this group, and I'm old as dirt. We were asked by this man, when he was on the city council, I believe, to look at the comp plan that, and planners agreed at that time. Dee Craig, was that her name? Your chief planner? I think that's right. And we went through the comp plan word by word, where it fit things that we were to be involved in, and we rewrote certain things. there, and it was a little bit touchy, and some people got upset, but we did it. And that was the last comp plan redo, and I don't know when that was. It was like 8 years ago. 11 years ago? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's where we did
Okay,
that.
all right.
It's still good and relevant to a certain extent.
Oh, thank you. Did you get one?
Well, I got this in the mail, I think.
I wanted to bring this, so we kind of, maybe this might help a visual. This is what the city, and this is what Doug was talking about, the goals and priorities. And you can see, if you turn to page 3, it has goal 1, and then it lists what they are, kind of what we were talking about. Those are the projects, those are the tasks. And for each one of their goals, and they have actually 5 goals, and each one is very clear where their focus is going to be. So Doug, what I think I heard you say is if this committee could bring something this clear to the commission in early January when the new commission is active, this would give this committee some more credence or to be more effective. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think this committee ever had the opportunity.
But it sounds like that's where you want to go.
That's where we want to go.
And this is where and you could have a brochure very similar to this and have pictures of the beavers or ducks. And you have some beautiful pictures, Brian, that you've taken.
Great.
And then you could do just like that. You could do your preamble, and then you could have your 5 right here, and then underneath these 5 would be where you're wanting to go.
No, I want a picture of a lamprey. No.
Okay.
No, seriously, I did want to add.
Okay, it was
one thing. There
Jerry.
wasn't pictures of
I'm sorry, it was
lampreys.
Jerry next, and then you. Okay.
You know, our preamble's beautiful. It's like that thing that was done by a small group from this body, I believe, when you were conducting the visioning process many years ago. Our preamble's so short and sweet and has something to accompany it. I feel that these 5 things that are now in front of me that I see on the screen, thank you, Brian, are focused activities. No, these are our responsibilities. These are our responsibilities as a group. And it's about time we got serious about making these our responsibilities and not varying from them. These are not activities. These are our responsibilities as the NRC.
Right.
I'm just going to make a strong point to that effect.
In your current bylaws, Article 3, duties, I get the impression that these would take the place of that.
Okay.
Well,
Duties. All right. Duties.
I agree.
I
I mean,
think
that
we
makes
should-
sense. Pete.
Rather than duties, we should call them responsibilities.
Yeah, I
'cause
like
that's how we feel
responsibilities as a
about them.
term.
Okay.
So is that a motion? Are you bringing that to the?
He can't make motions.
Okay, but I mean, everybody's saying yes,
He
yes, but
stands here and
before we do
watches.
something, so what I hear you say, Pete, is,
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
framing it in the organization of this
Exactly.
part.
and would you like to put those 5 then under Article 3 duties? Is that where you would like to put the
No.
5?
Well,
No, I want
okay.
to call them
then-
responsibilities.
Responsibilities, yes, I'm sorry. Article 3 responsibilities,
Yeah,
okay?
we're not going to call them goals.
No, because
Call
they're
them
not
res-
goals, they're
they're
responsibilities, right.
responsibilities.
But I think you can make your goals from these responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Good job, guys. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that one more time, and I'd like Doug, you have,
Oh, what, I don't know whether I should speak first or you here, but I guess what I wanted to circle back to is, I think this is very pertinent to revising the bylaws, and it sounds like that's
Yes.
exactly where we are, with a new preamble statement, a new statement of responsibilities, and then, by the way, that means a new statement of how the committee works. Things like officers and meetings and stuff would be part 3 of that. But what I wanted to emphasize was, number 1, we got to do that. But number 2, a short-term work plan would not be part of the bylaws, because the bylaws are something the city would adopt. The work plan is just something we adopt and change every year. So I want to be sure we keep one separate from the other, even though the work plan is real damned important to address what everybody's talking about.
it's where
It's
you're
not
going to
part
get
of
the
bylaws.
rubber meets the road. That's where you're going to really be effective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we had, I believe, Jerry, did you have?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
so.
And this is what Richard's doing.
You went to sleep, yes.
Are you with us, Richard? Okay.
Now he's smiling.
So Article 3, we were talking about changing duties to responsibilities, and we would then add the 5 focused activities that we have on the board. Is that right?
Add or replace?
Replace,
With.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
replace, thank you. Replace. Is that thumbs up? Okay, no.
now,
Okay,
I want to put a point of procedure here. We're talking about amending our bylaws, which has to go before city council.
right. This is
If
just
we're
a
going to do
draft.
that, I think we should look at the rest of the bylaws as well.
Indeed.
And we
But
can
not
function with
today.
these
But not
focused
today.
activities, these responsibilities.
Right.
We
Right.
can adopt them among ourselves.
Right, then that's what we're doing.
And then in the next meeting or the meeting after that, we can go look hard at the bylaws and see what other changes we may or may not want to do.
Thank you for the clarification,
Right,
thank you.
right.
So just this moment, right now, for today, and this is just a draft, and it is just saying that you as a committee agree with this, would be Article 3, would say responsibilities, and it would replace the 5 focus activities that we have on the screen and in front of you.
Yeah.
Doug?
A
Yeah, that's,
question then, fitting this into that framework, where does the preamble piece go?
The preamble we could put it in a couple different, you could put it under Article 1, or you could put it under Article 2, or before, because preamble is before. You could put it under Exhibit A to resolutions. You could put it right under there.
Seems like if we're going to call it preamble, we might as well stick it at the beginning. You know, it's not
Yeah.
post-amble or something like that.
middle angle,
During amble,
middle angle.
Okay, so
Meanwhile,
let's
yeah.
go to the preamble first, where we're going to put it, and then we need to have
Right.
a thumbs vote on Article 3. So would you like to put the preamble before Article 1?
Yes.
Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs I don't care.
I have a statement on this. We've got name, authority. I think the preamble should go as number 3 before the responsibility.
And
Okay,
then call
Yeah.
responsibilities for, you're suggesting?
Right.
Okay.
yeah.
As long as it goes
Because
before.
we've got to define who we are, where our authority comes from, and
And then-
then our purpose.
good, okay. So, new on the table, it would have Article 1 name, Article 2 authority, then the preamble, and then Article 3 responsibilities.
No, he said Article 3 would contain the preamble, Article 4 would be.
Oh, okay.
So we're
Okay.
renumbering everything after.
I
2.
see, okay, thank you for clarification.
I
And then
agree.
Article 3 would be the preamble.
Whatever you call it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Preamble's fine.
So with that, please show me your thumbs. Okay, and do we have a thumb on the screen?
Richard,
Okay,
Richard,
woo!
too. Unanimous, wow. Good.
Good.
All right.
Okay, we have a half hour left.
Point of order, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Well, I should ask the chairman this. If everyone looks at page 4 of 5 of these same incorporating documents that put us into existence, look at article, look at number 5, function. The following process shall be followed in order to make changes and amendments to the committee's bylaws. Do you all see that?
Yeah, I
Okay,
do.
this is the process we're going to follow, or we are kind of following now, but changes or amendments will be proposed and discussed.
This is for the bylaw.
Yes, so this is the process already outlined that we are supposed to follow. And I think it's clear. I like it the way it is. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's fine. I think that there'd be no problem following.
I mean, there seemed to be some question of whether we had a process. It's already outlined for us. We have a process.
Right.
You just have to
But I
follow the
believe-
process.
Yeah, then we forward it to the city commission for their approval.
Okay,
After we've made a 2/3 majority
all right,
vote on
okay,
it. Okay, so that's fine.
all right.
Okay, so actually, you've got a lot done today. You,
But we didn't adopt the responsibilities.
did we just not adopt, okay? I thought we just
Well, I
adopted.
thought that's what that thumbs up was.
Yeah, I thought that was too.
No.
Do you want us to do that separately?
It was the sequencing.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's
Preamble.
do that now then. Let's go ahead and adopt the 5. And we did,
Amended
as
goals
amended. As amended.
Responsibilities.
are 5 amended
Responsibilities.
responsibilities.
Yeah,
and,
Article 4.
Yes.
that'll be Article 4.
Article 4,
Yeah,
yes.
once we get to actually putting them in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We're not,
at this
we're not
time,
amending the bylaws, we're just adopting the responsibilities.
yes, we're adopting the
Just want to make that clear.
responsibilities. Yes. Okay, at this time, vote on that.
Okay,
If you're clear, okay?
Richard, thumbs up.
Richard's thumb.
Oh, my golly.
Oh, there it
Look at
is.
that.
That's definitely a thumb this time.
So,
Nah, it could be a toe.
we have 30 minutes, so we have adopted the preamble, we have outlined it in the bylaws, we have come up with the 5 responsibilities of this team. We have 30 minutes. Do you want to write one goal, that's all we'd have time for, one goal or task under one of these right now? Or would you want to, or what would you like to do? We have 30 minutes, and the goal is to be out of here at 1 o'clock.
Okay, Doug.
Doug?
Well, I guess I think there's 2 more jobs to do here. One of them is the procedural stuff, which is all the rest of the articles of the bylaws. And then the other one is getting on with a work plan, which I think is where the specifics come from. I mean, I'd be happy if we defined a process for how we're going to look at and analyze these procedures, so when we went out of here today, we knew what we needed to do for our next meeting for that discussion. And then secondly, we gave a little thought to what is the process for writing this work plan? Do we have a little team of 2 or 3 people that are going to develop a draft and bring it back to us, or are we all going to submit ideas and that will form kind of a first working draft with just everybody's ideas in a list, and we start our discussion there? That's
Okay.
be my priority for the next half hour, is those 2 things.
Okay, Bob and then Jerry.
I don't think, following kind of Doug's sequence of stuff, just trying to work on one goal right now would be that productive. It's better to work on the series of them all together, because there can be a
Okay.
relationship between them and stuff. I would be willing to volunteer to work with other people on a work plan format. If a couple of us could sit down and just put stuff together, come with kind of like a spreadsheet, and say, this is what we got done today. This is kind of like the next part of that, and go all the way across, so that when we're working again on it, we can see, oh yeah, it fits here, it doesn't fit there, or we didn't say when we were going to get this done by. Because it seems like the format or the framework is going to force a discipline on how we make it a reality. Because, I mean, it's not going to be a reality unless we have assignments, we have calendar dates, and we have a process of how we're going to get stuff done.
Okay. And then we had Jerry and then Pete.
All right. On the second page of the typewritten document, that's from me, typewriter, was my look at the bylaws, the simple 2-page sheet that was all scratched up that's in your packet, okay? And it went to finally at the bottom, and it kind of showed how we'd operate by simple majority, consensus vote, whatever, things like that. It's on the second page of that scratched up thing. All right, in our bylaws is something a little more elaborate, but misses a bunch of stuff. I'm going to ask that at our next meeting that this be on our agenda to look at this part, because we don't have some things resolved. And I guess it isn't clear to me how we are really following a procedure within our operations. It doesn't state anything about following Robert's rules, to my knowledge. Okay, decision-making shall seek the consensus. I've got some wording here, so just I'm not asking you to look at it today, but I'm asking us to look at it between now and our next meeting, because I want to bring this up for action to take a look at. And several things are missing. What constitutes a majority? In the bylaws, it says a decision can be made by those present. That's not a majority of the voting members. That's not. There's a bunch of problems. And also, there's nothing in our bylaws that constitutes if a member's active or not. I've been here, I've missed 2 meetings in 2 years. All right? And I think we need to have something in our bylaws that state what an active member is and what process we use to recommend what we want to do about it if the person isn't active. And I love Richard, and this is not aimed at you because you've been active, but it is aimed, it's missing, totally missing. I can leave now, and you'd never have to see me again for another 6 months, and there's no process. By the way, I'm not leaving now, and I will be here. So I'd like these elements of baggage that we haven't dealt with to be dealt with at our next regular meeting in some way. Get busy on them, or come in with the committee. I would be willing to talk with the chairman here about some ideas.
Okay, so tying right in with that, that would seem to be part of the Article 6 organizational procedures thing. There would be amendments to that section to accommodate those concerns. Because in part one of that, it talks about a majority of the committee needing to be present, what can and can't be done without a quorum, and then the consensus decision-making process is discussed right there.
Thanks, Doug.
Just, I don't have to come up there for it. You want to make certain that you have the capability of somebody interacting like Richard here, because some of you are involved in many things and maybe outside the, you can't make all the meetings physically, but you can communicate in this fashion.
Right.
And since you're having evening meetings, they're probably going to be able to get to a point where they can have access, be it through a phone line or something else, to those meetings. So whatever you want to build into it, make the attendance reflect that capability.
Right. And Richard looks so much like me on TV. I want to be on TV.
So we only have about 25 minutes left of today. Should we come up with a work plan to get the work plan done right now, because we have a short amount of time? Doug?
Well, I heard Bob suggest a couple minutes ago to start that by developing a template or a framework for it or whatever, and Bob volunteered to work on that. I'd be willing to work with him.
Good deal.
Sure.
And there are templates on the internet for just that. Yeah.
I like mine, or I think we probably have some experience probably working through something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
on the work plan, I have that Bob and Doug will be the subcommittee on that and work on that.
Oh, and if somebody else wants to join us,
I'll
wouldn't
jump
argue
in.
against it.
Okay, and Brian, and then another one would be, as I see, is to go through the bylaws, another subcommittee, go through the bylaws and, highlight what's a question, add, if you're looking at for your meeting, some of the things we've been talking about, if you want to add in attendance or add in,
I'd be willing to work on that. with some
Okay,
other help
Jerry?
there. Shaw,
So-
would you be willing to help with that, Shaw?
Okay,
Wonderful.
bylaws,
Okay. Good deal.
would you?
And maybe
was that
Ginger,
a-
would you?
Yes.
The bylaw
Okay.
thing, yeah.
So we have
Willing
Jerry,
to help either.
Shaw, and Ginger. So,
Ginger's a floater.
let's go back.
To go either
What the
way.
heck is Richard doing?
Yeah.
Richard, what would you like to do?
Richard's a mediator.
I'd like to work on the work plan.
The work plan.
Work plan, okay.
Good deal. All right.
So, We-
Just a clarification then, so, did I hear this right now, that the idea would be that there's a subgroup here that's gonna tee up the discussion on procedures out of the bylaws, and we would have at least an initial discussion of that at our next meeting, is that the vision
would
here?
and when is your next meeting?
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. That's that's limited time. You as a committee, you have to decide that. Does that give you enough time? Or would you like to go until May's meeting? That's up to you.
I think we could probably come up with a framework for a work plan by the next meeting, but it's not necessarily we're going to have it all filled out at the next meeting.
No, that's right, we wouldn't have developed a work plan, we would have the framework for a work plan by the next meeting, and then talk about how we fill it out and what the timeline for that is.
If we could get that done for the next meeting, that would allow the other
Okay.
group to continue on to the meeting after that,
Well,
so that
now,
we
just a
don't
minute here.
overfill our
You're
agenda.
assuming that we don't want to get our job done. I think if Shaw and Ginger and I can meet at Shaw's house, we can find the few spots that are wrong with those, need a little attention, and we can get something at least going.
Well, if I heard it right, you're not bringing back to us a rewritten set of procedures. You're bringing back to us, here's an issue here, here's an issue here, here's an issue here. Maybe you have some suggestions on those,
Yeah.
and then we discuss them as a
Exactly.
group.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
right. Nothing, these are subcommittees, they are just drafting, and then they bring it back to the whole committee for discussion and approval.
That sounds
And
good
those
to me.
subcommittees have much more flexibility than you do to meet
Right.
and report back, so.
So my understanding is Bob, Doug, Brian, and Richard will work on the work plan, and they will report back with a framework at the April meeting, and then bylaws.
Do we have an issue with having a majority of the committee on one of the subcommittees at a meeting?
No. That only becomes an issue when you're talking about things that haven't come before the body itself.
Okay.
The body is making the decision of putting these committees together, and you can accept, reject, or anything at this level. You're not,
Okay.
you're not trying to influence the process before the process starts.
Thank you, that's a very good clarification.
Yeah, thank
The
you.
bylaws and procedures, Shaw, Jerry, and Ginger will work on and report back at the April meeting. Okay?
At Shaw's house, because we like that location.
Well, you guys can figure that out.
Do that for April 9th as
For
well?
April 9th, yes.
I think we can get our work done by email.
And
I think we mostly.
may I recommend that would be at the first of your agenda, so you can,
If you ever.
this is a priority right now,
Yes.
and then you will have opportunity to
Yeah,
really
she has
get that
a new
done.
email.
Yes.
Just a
See
suggestion.
how that works.
Yes, and you know, one thing, and Brian and I have talked about this, I feel like doing orderly meetings means before we finish an evening meeting, which, you know, is the second Wednesday of the month, we generate our agenda for the next meeting so that this man doesn't have to second guess us, and that we have our act together as to what we are willing to accept. Then, I think it's also important that we can consider limiting what's going on. If we have a public input process, my gosh, the last one took an hour. We've got half an hour for public input, and that's it, because we got work to do. And I'm going to be the chairman of vice here. I'm the vice chairman here, okay? That we set a limitation that our meetings are over by 9:30 at latest, because we just seem to go on, and we need to be
There were
tasked.
7 o'clock to 9 o'clock
Well-
meetings.
Well, whatever they are, they're going too long.
Again, that would be a great opportunity in the procedures in your organizational
Yeah.
part of your bylaws, and
Okay.
you're on that committee, so that would be great to include those.
But we spend too much
Let me-
time trying to figure out
let me
what's
point
going to be on the
something
agenda.
Real quick, is
Okay.
the real reason I was suggesting that one of the two committees wait a meeting to report is because it's going to take too long to fit into a meeting,
I don't agree with that.
okay?
I think we can do that in 20 minutes. Our group.
Well, I think the report back on the format
Yeah,
thing,
until we
I mean,
ask
it doesn't have to lead to a
No.
big discussion,
No.
we'll just bring it back. The question is then, how long does the committee want to review that, and what do we do next with
Right.
it? The one that
And-
requires the discussion is the other one.
Right.
The procedure.
The work-
And it also depends on what else is on the agenda.
Indeed.
And just a suggestion is that you put on your agendas time, when you're developing your agenda, put 10 minutes or whatever you think, and put that time, and stick to that time. And also, anything that you can get out to the committee in advance. So both of the subcommittees, as you form an idea, you come up with a document, if you could email or send it even by mail to each individual so they have that in advance, would really speed up that process.
Right.
Well, you know, we're setting an agenda right now. Mr. Chairman, as Vice Chairman, I'm going to ask that we decide what the next agenda should concern, and I think it has a public input process that we would limit to whatever you think, this group thinks, and that these two issues are issues that we're concerned about under new business, but in old business, the only thing that we still have pending is the the recommendation we made regarding Beaver issues, and we don't know what to do about it because it seemed to have gone nowhere. So I think we need to take care of that and dispose of it in some way. So I'd ask that our next agenda include public input for half an hour,
Okay.
that we, under old business, we consider our recommendation and where it's at, and then we take under these new items, new business, these two things. And that's what we have as our agenda, and that's it.
Well, you're in a work session right now. You're not like it's not like a typical meeting. So, the normal format, I think, of your meetings would be to set your agenda at the April 9th
But to make this
meeting.
next meeting
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah, I agree.
And Bob?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One thing is, the Beaver can be carried over old business, but I'm hoping that we get some kind of trolley bridge update, even though the bridge is falling down and stuff like that, but just kind of know where that stands. But I think the thing that we can anticipate right here is there going to be city business, I know, Pete, I know land use actions or other stuff coming down that you need to share with us that'll take some kind of agenda time. Well, we don't know what that is right now.
Right. So there'll be a standard space on your agenda for the natural resource overlay district applications that are under review.
I don't know if there's any tree
Richard
nominations.
would like to
or-
speak.
Well, my whole point is, in order to be functional, we got to be orderly. If we get overwhelmed, we can't be orderly. So we got to set limitations on what we can accept at any given time, and then respond on the things that are in our normal routine, old business, new business, and so forth.
Okay, Richard?
Oh,
Yeah, I've got just digressing just a little bit on the work plan. If you look at that submittal date March 15,
Yep.
day-to-day things we were supposed to do.
yep,
Now, to me, that gets to a work plan, elements of a work plan.
yep.
Is that kind of what you're thinking? Or are you thinking something different in terms of a work plan?
My idea of a work plan was kind of like the way you would see a work plan for a grant submittal, where you limit your goals and you figure out your quantifiable objectives and then related activities and timelines and assignments. Something that would, just kind of lay it out so you could see it from the beginning to the end, and it'd be real clear that you would have the pieces that you could evaluate later on, whether or not that work plan item was achieved successfully.
Well, these are things I think we're supposed to do, and to me, that makes up a part of a work plan, action items.
Oh, it'd definitely be incorporated.
Applications. The question is, are those done monthly, weekly, quarterly, or whatever? I guess it's maybe indeterminate as to when they come in
Sure.
for review.
Isn't that the next step after developing a format?
This is the work.
Then move on to that
Start
level?
plug in.
My sense is that the committee could have their work plan on every agenda just to see it. That's what the Historic Review Board does. And sometimes they update it, and sometimes it's just there as a reference.
Sure, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think part of what will happen with the work plan is we get more experience on our belt. We'll be able to figure out how we might adjust it or what the workload is, but it's based on kind of a track record of what happens over 3 months or 6 months or a year.
Richard, as I review the day-to-day things we're supposed to do, definitely those could be on the work plan, yes,
Many of them would be.
yes. I just would have more detail with that on the work plan on how you would go about meeting those goals or getting results.
Yeah, these are all things that can frequently come up. They won't necessarily every time, but we need to be aware of them as potential additions to any agenda. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure that there needs to be much more detail unless there's something specific that can be added to each one of those categories.
right, that's where the detail would come in, is there is something that we need to address.
Something of that sort, I would think.
For instance, if there was an application that needed to be reviewed on type 2, then the name of that application would be under review type 2 applications.
Right, but that would, the application, put that under there. In
Right.
other words, that would be a category, would be type 2 application. And then Steve,
Yes,
for
yes,
example, would list the applications that are appropriate for review. That wouldn't be up to us, that would be up to the city. The city is bringing that to us for review.
Right, and I think what you're talking about here is the difference between providing notice of land use applications directly to the NRC irrespective of their meeting schedule. That way,
Yeah.
you're in the type 2 land use review process.
Thank you.
So,
Yes,
and there's a timeline associated with that separately. So that's something that my boss would need to sign off on because it affects the review procedures, and that's okay.
yeah. But I guess I would encourage folks to look at those day-to-day things that I've listed here to see if there are other things. And the bottom one is other tasks as requested. We don't know what the city might request of us that's not included in these already.
But we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, well,
I guess,
yeah, we-
what are we supposed to be doing? And to me, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
yeah, well, we have to remember flexibility, because we can plan this out so well that everything we know about will be taken care of, and then there's everything else. So then that's where the flexibility comes in.
We're going to wrap up our meeting now. We only have 10 minutes left, and I want to thank all of you for taking your Sunday to be here to help our city. Thank you so much. We have formed, actually, we've got quite a bit done. We came up with the preamble, we came up with the responsibilities, and came out with 2 subgroups from that. And you will be meeting in the next 2 weeks or communicating with each other. And then both of you will report out on the April meeting.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
For the order of this group, and to thank you, she came back, Carol and her husband, from South Carolina last night to make sure she could be here. I won't say you cut your vacation short, but you definitely were, this is on your mind. I got several calls from her about what is the content we need to look at and so forth, and we convinced about that. I mean, Carol's getting nothing for this, and we really appreciate what you're doing.
It's an honor to work with all of you. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have one additional question or comment. On that other document that I provided dated November 22nd, it's the November 22nd date is at the bottom of the page. Potential items for city goals and or NRC consideration.
That was in the previous
And
packet.
I think that's where, the things need to be moved to the city on a timely basis because there's budgetary constraints or considerations that need to be taken into account. And like establish a volunteerism job position for the city, item 4, or natural resources.
That was in your
position for the
previous
city,
packet.
item 3. These are budgetary considerations, and that's what Doug, I think, was talking about earlier in terms of getting our ideas to the city commission on a timely basis.
Well, we were told that you're working the Midwest to bring us additional funding. So thank you and I agree with what you just said. Those are things that we need to consider. But while you're there, work the Midwest to help us out here on the West Coast, would you?
If I may.
I can't hear.
I think we lost you.
That wasn't a ringing endorsement.
The lamprey has been adopted as a logo of the Greater Oregon City watershed.
Is it really?
Wow.
And so I want to make a suggestion. You're concerned about not only water, and you're also concerned about land. You select an amphibian.
Amphibian.
Something
Have you
fishy
seen
about
the
that.
lampreys? They crawl up rocks. They're not always in the water.
Well, it's wet.
Beavers. Right? That's our symbol.
Okay.
And thank you, Pete. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to mention something separate from our usual business, as I'm leading a series of hikes this summer, starting actually in April, and I was going to pass these around if anybody's interested in those.
I think I've got a copy already.
You already got one.
I don't have one.
I think,
No, I don't.
What did you do with it?
You never gave it to me. You had no picture. No.
Can I ask a question? Has the Greater, excuse me,
You will
the
get
Natural
one.
Resource
Don't
Committee,
worry.
has the committee
Short on
done
that.
Further Falls?
Okay.
Have they done what?
Have you gone on as a group at the Blue Heron?
I thought we did.
Yeah, we took a tour.
Not all of us went,
going-
but several did, yes.
This
Yeah.
Friday.
We did.
This coming
I've
Friday.
been there several times.
You might have thought we were done.
Good.
Right. Now, my question to the mayor is, have you been on a tour to look at the Blue Heron? Off of Elder Bar Park right now, 100 birds are in the process of nesting. The biggest number in the history of that assemblage, which is called a colony, which is called a heron rookery. And that's the biggest number ever in the history, and this is the time to look at them. If you went down to Melton Bar Park and looked across, now the trees are still open enough. There's a logging operation going on. Fishermen out there are saying that they're dropping sticks on them. I said, well, darn right. You get those fishermen in the way and drop sticks on them. They actually are. They're dropping sticks on the fishermen if they get too close to their nests. So and that's a huge assemblage of herons.
That's Aaron's.
Next stage is dive bombing.
That's a serious threat with those birds.
I have more hummingbirds at my feeder
You have
this year
hummingbirds?
than I've ever had. I mean,
Wow.
I had 4 different Rufus hummingbird males and 2 different Anna
There-
hummingbird males.
I just
and
saw-
they're battling each other. It's
Yeah.
talk about buzzing.
Someone
We've got
just
6 Rufus around our house.
did a slow motion and slowed down the voices of hummingbirds. It's just amazing. It sounds like, almost like a language once you slow it down enough. So it's not just, you know, it's very interesting.
All this water is going to be a bountiful year for wildlife.
I think so. Is that going to? Oh, no. Get that. Absolutely.
We really did. Very, very,
You
very
see,
much.
I think I'll do scheduling. If you're going to come in and meet on Sunday, they won't be productive, so you won't get the heck out.
Right. Well, yeah, you know, right. I actually feel that way about Wednesdays, too. I want to get things done and move on, you know? All right.
There we go.
Did you bring your dogs?
No, but they're not far.
Well, I'm thinking about it. It's on my mind, you know? If I can find Timothy, we need to go to the Overlook and do some geology.
The
Up here.
the one they have fenced off?
Well, the one that we look over the WPA wall.
Yeah.
They fence it off now?
Yes. Well, no, you can get to the overlook.
Yeah.
You just can't go anywhere from there. Unless you go through the fence.
Oh, well, okay.
You know, when you're in Peter Bridges too. Okay. I have a question for you, just I thought you might know about it. I just bought an electric car, so I'm really into electric cars and charging stations. And how come the city doesn't have one? Where is it? Yes. There you go. There's also private one. Yeah, I know where some others are. I just didn't know where to see them.
10 years old for that.
Thank you.
And
I never go there.
what happened? Well, as I said, I had this thing a week, and I was getting smart.
It's like First City. No, it's down there, and I think they actually.
So level 2.
Yeah.
The question you should be asking is now, we got, police departments, why don't we have more stations? That's what you should ask.
The question I really want to ask is, why don't we have a waiting room at the Amtrak station? What the hell kind of train station doesn't have a waiting room there? On that building, spent all that money, moved that building there, remodeled it, and just sits there. I understand, but we're a long ways down the road, there's no action. And I go out there and get cold and wet every time I leave the train.
So you can sit in your car.
I could have sat in my car, but if you do that, in an electric car, you run down the battery.
You're just sitting in the car and be dry. Wait, wear heavier clothing.
That's what this is about, isn't it?
Interesting
Can you just say the opposite here?
Yeah, no.
I understand you. Somebody your recommendation is we consider cruising to see it or something, instead of just like we shut it down.
My Scott Archer said, I am going to.
You know, so we know we're talking to somebody.
They've got a museum part of the building.
How you doing?
Or at least this portion of this?
Yes.
And then all the way down to the
all look way over there. I have so much.
Chief
So that
man.
bike path should go.
Yeah.
All the way drop down to Aurora.
Going
Right
east.
in that, Bucks County, that last bit, so that Marion County
So,
lines will go. And then go all the way down.
One of the trees they cut down.
Far down.
They're having lunch there. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Why, what and why for this whole thing.
Why you wanna do that?
And, then they need a haircut, though. I had first year in sex movie, and then a couple years later, series, it's actually always been
Picture.
all have
Is that the one that was on Facebook?
So I think.
I think she.
She has a kid? Does she have a kid?
I can't remember. Girls can't picture of you guys.
Well, yeah.
But equally to the point, where I kind of hope we can use this as a sample of how we communication process, and everybody understands the same process. We understand that city staff, city managers understand it, we all use it, whatever.
By the way, south to Aurora.
Yeah, it actually reaches them, and they consider it, and then they give you some kind of feedback, even if it's, yeah, we don't think that's worth doing. I mean, some kind of feedback. Well, I would too, but any answer's better than no.
If they're not on the airplane.
You earth friendly, you want them all in the car driving around, you want them.
So I have
this is really our story. So, it's only that we don't have based on goal three.
This is a good discussion. I see this start, the pieces starting to fall into place.
Well, you're
Work to
always
do, but
being
it's
so
not
important
easy
to the
to.
committee, so important. So I'm giving you applause for that, because that's what's going to give up to this committee.
Yes, it will. That's really where most of the real
They are
concerns
papers,
is
and that's their goal, right?
what are we doing, what are we putting our effort, what kind of result are we expecting?
And we want to be in advance,
Nobody understands water
proactive, not
so much more
retroactive.
than I do, because I've done it for 30 years.
Yeah,
They're
comment.
so
He didn't like that, yeah. And that's so disrespectful.
That's the best
You
you
know,
can
and
do.
so your support is
Yeah, for me,
huge.
it's
Wow,
one thing,
that's
that's
great.
all over the buses.
Yeah.
Next is service.
If you're really happy, yeah, everyone you find out.
Yes,
Give them all right bikes, everything.
you have a lot of knowledge.
It's for service. You know, I can tell you that we can put your light storage on the jet boat. But the thing is, you got it holistically, especially when you're delivering any people to the museums. That's the point.
I would assume we replaced it.
Well, you know, I'm not Quartet, it's Quartet that.
Well, I believe they just sprayed on hydro mulch and everything was grass
So
and come
great.
on
So
the
as
shore.
a citizen or a stakeholder, I'm not sure where I am stakeholder. See all these things out in the library, I'm so excited about that.
Well, it's not a
And
place.
Dr. Beyonce, the old costume, is going to be released this week.
Yeah.
Picture panels on the library.
Yes.
That'll be on our tour.
The movement grass is
Our shorts, the moderator, Zinger, and then we had a panel on Smith.
So this is history, wildlife,
T-H-O-N-S-T.
New Old Church, Old Mount Angel and back. On May 1st.
He's the president of the school.
No.
Retired administrator.
Percent survival is that we're talking about, you know, stalking rate, below that, what's your plan? What you're saying here is being, yeah, it's not, you don't have to do something. He was gonna start over for the replacement plans.
Our city employees would
All right.
advocate for the facility because they're paid and so forth. That's up to him. In any case, you got to-
Well, we put in,
Steve,
and we have rolled.
had actually over there at the amendment office, he was retired and so forth, so they got a hold of him
And
and
if we don't make it,
Called up
we
there.
have 4 calls.
he did very well too.
And he had
Half
just
the
ran
neighbors.
into Nancy Hungerford, who was an attorney.
Oh, yeah.
And she
To
said,
the
and he
neighbors.
said, oh, yeah, I'm gonna be on
They're off the
the
radar.
Why? No, you're not. So,
And the other ones, of course, are
Because he is not a paid employee of the
Those
city.
things.
I think
Yeah.
they just don't wanna, you know, somebody goes
Nobody
off.
wants to do
Yeah.
Well, that's a variety.
And I think they're being proactive, which is what we're talking about, being
Yeah.
proactive. So I think it worked out good, but I'm excited
There's no
for
effect.
that. And
We generic links was chucking stuff out. Yeah, that's a big
At
problem.
11 o'clock.
So you enjoy it somewhere?
perfect, perfect.
You wanna come join us?
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is fun.
yeah, well, you're supposed to go.
have fun at my
We're all
house.
supposed-
I
Once
really
the
like to
trans-
come to
yeah,
Rochester. I love your house.
What's the track length of the
Go there. I love your house. So good.
Quarter of a mile approximately.
Well, the first had babies. Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Orange paper, the color is.
Not during school.
Hard, 3 layers of tar, 3 layers of paper.
We're almost
Ran it
exclusively.
real slow speed. And they sent this to Hawaii for all the plantation plants.
Well, I understand this is our
Pull it
goal.
out, and it's already made with a slice.
Well, no, you can almost any place. They were gonna provide basic
It wasn't
probability.
grass on, it's tar.
Then you've got conditions under which those exist, and you know the probabilities of those conditions.
Carrying a very acceptable setting.
If I had some basic probabilities for
You could just see her whole body turn red and I smile at her and say hi and she's like, yeah, it's true. Her parents are like,
I just saw it the other day, it's the first time I've eaten smell in 4 years.
My brother used to make me do that.
One of the big things my family would have a kid fry smell.
Yeah, and he kept out pellets and he that allows you to harvest it. They were coming in, but it wasn't legal. Of course, others did.
They're basically,
Animals.
you're dealing with.
Oh gosh, anybody even
Yeah, the
get
sturgeon does.
Oh, well, sturgeon really sucking. Any mammal that's from further areas of the
I got to the otters.
All the smell, that smell came from Bering Sea. Massaconna's where this come from, this thing, Bering Sea, and other supplies. You know, one day we need to get us a big piece. They do.
I don't know that we've got that kind of information on the high seas behaviors.
They do.
I mean,
That's what it is.
they go for us, we're down by.
Well, they buy them from fishermen up there.
That's what you meant. Oh, I thought you meant that they grew there and came back. Who the hell knows that?
You guys know that half the smoked salmon supply in our nation is produced in
Myself and I.
60,000 pounds.
No kidding, but I knew there was one of the
Thanks.
biggest. Yeah.
No,
I can't believe they do.
I'm out of here. Thank you.
I know it's a little tiny.
You can enjoy the rest of the day.
Yes.
That floods, a really big flood, but
Yeah, it's underwater, yeah. But every once in a while, when I ride my motorcycle, I
Thank you, thank you. Yes.
Well, good discussion.
yes, I think we did well.
And everybody
We'll just roll it.
that
Well,
was,
that's exactly right.
thank you, it was nice meeting you. Oh, I don't know, you guys did all the work. I didn't do anything, you guys did